At a baby shower, my 34-year-old cousin asked me to give him my Rolex because he dreamed he was wearing it. Everyone laughed. I didn't. Bro, give me your Rolex. Ryan didn't even lower his voice. He said it over pastel balloons and paper plates shaped like baby bottles. He said it while my aunt was unwrapping a tiny yellow onesie with little MVP stitched across the front. He said it loud enough that at least 12 people heard him clearly. I literally dreamed I was wearing it last night, he added, grinning. It's meant to be. Laughter rippled across the backyard. Light, casual, the kind of laugh people use when they assume something is a joke. I didn't laugh. Not because I didn't get it, but because I've known Ryan my entire life, and I've learned to recognize the difference between a joke and a test. The baby shower was for his wife, Lauren. She was 7 months pregnant, glowing in that way people always describe pregnant women when they're trying to keep the focus positive. The decorations were soft blue and cream. Someone had set up a little photo corner with plastic clouds. It was the last place I expected to negotiate ownership of a family heirloom. Ryan leaned closer, eyes flicking down to my wrist. Come on, he said, still smiling. It's not like you even wear it that much. A few more chuckles. My aunt, his mother, shook her head playfully. Ryan, stop teasing, she said. But she was smiling too. Teasing. That's what it always is at first. The Rolex wasn't flashy. It wasn't diamond-studded. It wasn't oversized. It was an older model, stainless steel, clean and understated. My grandfather had worn it for 30 years. He wore it when he signed the paperwork for the small hardware store he built from scratch. He wore it when he walked my mother down the aisle. He wore it every Sunday to church, adjusting the band slightly when the weather changed. He left it to me. Not because I asked, not because I hinted, because, in his words, you're the only one who understands what things are worth. He didn't mean money. He meant weight, responsibility. Ryan knew that. That's what made the joke heavier than it sounded. I kept my voice neutral. What? He laughed louder now. Dude, I'm serious. I had the clearest dream. I was wearing it. It just felt right. More laughter. Lauren shifted uncomfortably beside him. Ryan, she murmured quietly, but he waved her off. Dreams mean something, he continued. That's like subconscious claiming. You ever read about that? Someone near the drink table said, he's manifesting. More laughter. Still light, still harmless. On the surface. I looked at him. Really looked. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't high. He wasn't performing wildly. He was measuring, waiting to see how I'd respond. This wasn't the first time he'd commented on the watch. The first time was at Christmas 2 years ago, a few months after Grandpa passed. I'd worn it quietly, didn't announce it, didn't bring it up. Ryan noticed immediately. Nice, he'd said, grabbing my wrist without asking. Didn't know you were the chosen one. The word had edge. Chosen. Like it was some secret ceremony instead of a private decision made by a dying man. He left it to me, I said. Ryan laughed. Must be nice. Must be nice. That phrase had followed me most of my life around him. When I got into a decent college, must be nice. When I landed a stable job out of school, must be nice. When I bought a small condo at 28, must be nice. It's a subtle accusation disguised as admiration, as if stability is luck, as if effort is coincidence. At the baby shower, he stepped closer again. Let me try it on, he said suddenly. That got a louder reaction. Ooh, someone teased. Lauren gave him a look. Ryan, she said, firmer now. He ignored her. Come on, he repeated, holding out his hand. Just for a minute. The air shifted slightly, still playful, but thinner. I glanced around. My aunt was watching carefully now. My uncle pretended to scroll on his phone. My mom gave me a small warning look, one that said, don't make this awkward. There it was, the quiet pressure. Maintain harmony. Absorb. It would have been easy to laugh, to slip it off, to let him wear it for 30 seconds so everyone could snap a photo and move on. But that wasn't what this was. Ryan doesn't test boundaries once. He tests them repeatedly. When we were kids, he'd borrow things without asking. Video games, shoes, even a jacket once that he kept for 3 months because, in his words, you weren't using it. When confronted, he'd shrug. You didn't say no? As if silence was permission, as if lack of resistance was consent. That pattern doesn't disappear at 34, it just gets dressed in better language. Dream manifestation. Subconscious signals. Energy alignment. Underneath it all, the same message. If I want it, there must be a reason I deserve it. I looked down at my wrist. The second hand ticked calmly. Grandpa used to say, time doesn't argue, it just keeps moving. Ryan leaned in again. So? He asked, smiling. You serious? I said quietly. He blinked. The smile didn't drop, but something flickered. Yeah, he said. Why not? Laughter again, but weaker. I felt Claire's hand brush lightly against my back. Grounding. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. I could hear the subtext in the room. Don't escalate. It's a baby shower. It's not the time. But entitlement rarely picks convenient settings. It shows up where it feels safe. Public enough to pressure. Light enough to dismiss. I looked at Ryan steadily. You dreamed you were wearing it, I repeated. Yeah. And that means, he laughed. It means it's meant to be, bro. There it was. Not just borrowing. Claiming, not symbolic. Literal. I felt something settle in my chest then. Not anger. Clarity. Because this wasn't about a watch. It was about whether a joke, repeated confidently enough, becomes expectation, and whether I would once again make it easier by playing along. I didn't move. I didn't unbuckle the clasp. I didn't smile. And the laughter finally stopped. The laughter died in pieces. Not all at once. A couple of people near the gift table kept smiling, waiting for the punchline that never came. Someone coughed. A plastic fork scraped against a plate. Ryan tilted his head slightly. What? He said. You acting like I asked for your kidney. A few nervous chuckles. It was a clever pivot. Downplay the ask. Frame me as dramatic. I just said let me try it on, he continued, louder now. Relax. There it was, the soft gaslighting layer. You're overreacting. I hadn't reacted at all. I asked if you were serious, I said evenly. I am, he replied, grin still there. Why not? He extended his hand again, palm up, waiting. The gesture was almost childish, like we were on a playground negotiating trading cards. My aunt stepped in gently. Ryan, honey, leave it alone, she said, but her tone was still indulgent, not corrective, not firm. He shrugged. I'm just saying, he doesn't even wear it that much. That was true. I didn't. I wore it on holidays, family events, significant days, like today, because Lauren had asked if I'd bring something that reminds you of Grandpa since she never met him. She'd said it softly, almost shy. She'd known how much he meant to me. Ryan knew that too, which made this worse. It's not about wearing it a lot, I said. It's about not hoarding stuff. He shot back immediately. There it was, a moral twist. Suddenly, I wasn't just protective. I was selfish. You know Grandpa would have wanted it shared, he added. That made my jaw tighten slightly. Grandpa wasn't abstract. He wasn't a brand. He was a man who made deliberate choices. He left it to me, I said calmly. Ryan laughed again, but there was strain now. Yeah, but you know how that was. You were around more. That was true. I visited more. Not strategically, just consistently. Ryan drifted in and out of family gatherings depending on work, relationships, moods, but now the implication was clear. Proximity equaled manipulation. You were around too, I said. Not like you, he replied. And for a moment, something honest flashed across his face. Not entitlement, resentment. Lauren shifted again. Ryan, let's just open the next gift, she said softly. He ignored her. Come on, he pressed, lowering his voice slightly. Just let me wear it for a minute. What's the big deal? The room felt smaller. I could feel eyes sliding back and forth between us. No one wanted confrontation, but no one was stepping in either. This is how family dynamics sustain themselves. Silence becomes endorsement. I don't want to, I said simply. That should have been enough. It wasn't. Ryan blinked. That's it, he said. You don't want to? Yes, he scoffed. That's cold. There it was again. Cold. When boundaries aren't dramatic, they're labeled cold. It's my watch, I replied. And I'm your cousin, he shot back. The logic was almost impressive. Ownership dissolved by blood relation. So, I said, so don't be weird about it. Weird. Now I was socially misaligned. My aunt cleared her throat. Boys, she said, smiling thinly. Not today. Ryan rolled his eyes slightly. I'm not fighting, he said. I just think it's funny he's acting like it's sacred. Sacred. That word landed harder than the rest, because in a way, it was. Not holy, but weighted. Grandpa had adjusted the clasp on my wrist in the hospital the week before he passed. His hands were thin then, veins more visible than I remembered. Don't sell it, he'd said quietly. I hadn't planned to, but the fact that he said it meant something. Ryan knew that too, and that's when I understood. This wasn't about wanting to try it on. It was about testing whether the meaning attached to it could be weakened publicly. If I laughed, if I handed it over casually, the symbolism would shrink. It would become just a watch. And if it was just a watch, then maybe it could be claimed. Ryan stepped closer again. Unless you're scared I'll like it too much, he said, smirking. That got a few laughs. He was regaining ground. Humor as weapon. You keep saying you dreamed about it, I said quietly. Yeah. And that means you think it should be yours. It's a sign, he said, grinning wider. Universe stuff. Universe stuff, I repeated. He leaned in. You don't believe in signs? I held his gaze. I believe in wills. That got a reaction, small but sharp. A couple of relatives looked down at their drinks. Ryan's smile thinned. You're taking this way too seriously, he said. Am I? I asked. Yes, he snapped, the grin finally cracking. It's just a watch. If it was just a watch, he wouldn't be pushing this hard. If it was just a watch, he would have dropped it 2 minutes ago. But he wasn't dropping it, because this wasn't about the metal. It was about whether he could claim something publicly without resistance, and whether I'd once again smooth it over for the sake of comfort. Okay, he said suddenly, clapping his hands once. Let's make it interesting. I felt Claire tense slightly beside me. What does that mean? I asked. If I get engaged before your wedding, he said, smiling again, you give it to me. A few gasps. Now it wasn't just a joke. It was a bet, public, transactional, and tied to milestones again. The irony wasn't lost on me. He didn't even realize he'd just echoed Madison's logic from the previous story in a different form. Life as competition. I'm not wagering my grandfather's watch on your relationship timeline, I said calmly. He laughed. See, you can't even play. This isn't a game, I replied. The laughter stopped fully this time. Lauren looked embarrassed. My aunt's smile had faded. Ryan stared at me. And for the first time since the conversation started, the joking layer was gone. You think you're better than me, he said quietly. There it was, the real thing. Not dream logic, not universe talk, not teasing, resentment. I don't, I said. You act like it. How? You always have something to say that makes me look stupid. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't insulted him, but I hadn't yielded either. And to someone used to soft compliance, that feels like humiliation. I'm not trying to make you look anything, I said. You don't have to try, he shot back. Silence spread again. Heavy now. No more baby shower music filling the gaps. Just people waiting. Waiting for me to either diffuse it or escalate it. And that's when I decided which direction this would go. Ryan's last sentence hung in the air. You don't have to try. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was the first honest thing he'd said since this started. I could have softened then. I could have said something like, it's not like that, and redirected the conversation back to diapers and baby names. That's what everyone expected. That's what I'd done most of my life. Instead, I did something small. I stepped half a foot closer. Not aggressive, not confrontational, just enough that we weren't projecting across the yard anymore. You said you dreamed it was yours, I said calmly. Ryan didn't answer immediately. People were still watching. He glanced around, checking the temperature of the room. It was a joke, someone near the drink table offered weakly. Ryan looked at me again. Yeah, he said, I dreamed it. And because you dreamed it, I continued, keeping my voice steady, you think you should have it. He hesitated. There it was. The hesitation, the first crack. I mean, it felt right, he said, less confident now. Felt right, I repeated. Lauren looked mortified. My aunt's arms were crossed now. No more smiling. Ryan, she murmured, almost warning him, but he doubled down. Yeah, he said, louder now. It felt right. So what? And that was the moment. The point where this stopped being about a watch entirely. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult him. I didn't say anything clever. I just asked, can you say that again? He blinked. What? Say it again, I said calmly. That you believe you should have Grandpa's watch because you dreamed about it. Silence. The kind that spreads outward. You could hear the inflatable balloon arch rustle in the breeze. Ryan looked around. The room felt different now. No laughter cushion, no background chatter, just clarity. I didn't say I should have it, he said defensively. You did, I replied evenly. You said it's meant to be, that I should give it to you. That's not what I meant. What did you mean? He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. I meant, it'd be cool. That's different from give it to me. A few people shifted uncomfortably. The difference between a joke and a demand is repetition. He'd repeated it 3 times. He knew that. You're twisting this, he said. No, I answered. I'm clarifying it. His jaw tightened. I was joking. You offered to bet on it, I said. That if you got engaged first, I'd owe it to you. His face flushed slightly. That was banter. It didn't feel like banter. He stared at me. And then he did something I didn't expect. He laughed again, but it was hollow. You're making this a whole thing. You made it a whole thing, I said calmly. The words weren't sharp. They didn't need to be. They were accurate. Lauren finally spoke up, voice firm for the first time. Ryan, stop. That surprised everyone, including him. He looked at her like she'd betrayed him. It was just a joke, he insisted again, weaker now. If it was just a joke, I said, you would have dropped it the first time I said no. That landed. You could feel it. My uncle cleared his throat. Let's not ruin the day, he said, trying to smooth it over. I'm not ruining anything, I replied calmly. I'm answering a request. Ryan looked smaller now, not physically, but socially, because for the first time, he didn't have an audience cushioning him. He had an audience evaluating him. You think I'd actually take it? He asked. Yes, I said. The honesty startled him, and maybe that was the first real turning point. Because the grin was gone now. The bravado, the performance. All that was left was something defensive. You don't trust me? He said. It's not about trust, I replied. It's about entitlement. That word cut cleaner than anything else I'd said. A couple of people looked at each other. Ryan blinked. Entitlement? He repeated. You asked me to give you something that isn't yours, I said. You framed it as fate, then you framed it as a bet. Then you framed it as me being cold. Each layer laid out plainly. No drama, no shouting, just sequence. And now, I continued, you're framing it as a joke. He didn't respond, because there wasn't a version left to pivot to. Lauren looked down at her hands. My aunt finally spoke, but her voice wasn't playful anymore. Ryan, she said quietly, that's enough. He swallowed. His shoulders dropped slightly. It was a joke, he muttered one last time. Then let's leave it as one, I replied calmly. And I stepped back, not in retreat, just in closure. The moment passed, not explosively, not theatrically, just definitively. Someone restarted the music. A baby rattle shook somewhere near the gift table. Conversation resumed in hesitant fragments. Ryan didn't approach me again. He didn't apologize. He didn't make another comment about the watch. He stayed close to Lauren for the rest of the event. Quieter, more contained. The energy around him had shifted, because the joke had been forced into clarity, and clarity isn't friendly to entitlement. The baby shower didn't collapse. No one stormed out. No plates shattered against patio tiles. It ended the way most family events do, awkwardly smoothed over, slightly quieter than before, everyone pretending the tension had dissolved instead of settled. Ryan didn't come near me again that afternoon. He hovered near Lauren, refilled drinks, laughed when other people laughed. But it was thinner now, measured, like he was recalibrating. When Claire and I left, my mom walked us to the driveway. You handled that well, she said quietly. That surprised me. Did I? I asked. Yes, she replied. You didn't embarrass him. I thought about that. I hadn't tried to embarrass him, but I had refused to protect him from the weight of his own words. There's a difference. Later that evening, I got a text from my aunt. He didn't mean anything by it. You know how Ryan jokes. I stared at the message for a while. That phrase again. You know how he is. It's the shield that keeps certain people from ever having to grow. I typed back, I do know how he is. That's why I answered clearly. No response after that. 2 days passed. Then Ryan texted me directly. Not an apology. Not exactly. Didn't mean to make it weird. I read it twice, then replied, it wasn't weird, it was clear. A few minutes later, another message. You didn't have to call it entitlement. There it was. Not regret for asking. Regret for being labeled accurately. If you don't like the word, I replied, change the behavior. He didn't respond after that, and honestly, that was fine. Over the next few weeks, something subtle shifted. At a small family dinner, someone made a joke about borrowing my car. Ryan didn't pile on. At a barbecue, when a cousin teased about trading sneakers, Ryan said, drop it. That caught my attention. Not because he'd transformed overnight, but because the dynamic had adjusted. When you stop absorbing, people recalibrate. Grandpa used to say, people treat you how you train them. I didn't fully understand that when I was younger. I do now. The Rolex wasn't about status, it wasn't about money, it wasn't even really about inheritance. It was about whether symbolic things in my life were up for public negotiation. And for years, small things had been. Jokes about jobs, comments about income, side remarks about being lucky. Each one brushed off, each one absorbed, each one reinforcing that my boundaries were flexible. At the baby shower, for the first time, I didn't cushion it. I didn't escalate. I didn't humiliate. I just slowed it down enough that everyone could hear what was actually being said. And sometimes, that's enough. A month later, Ryan invited me out for a drink. Just the two of us. I considered declining, then decided not to. We met at a low-key bar downtown. He didn't bring up the Rolex immediately. We talked about work, about Lauren's upcoming due date, about nothing. Then halfway through his second beer, he said, "I didn't think you'd take it that seriously." "I did," I replied. He nodded. "I guess I don't know. Sometimes it feels like you have everything figured out." There it was again. That undercurrent. Not pure greed, not pure entitlement. Comparison. "You don't see the parts I don't have figured out," I said. "Yeah," he muttered. "Maybe." He stared at his drink for a moment. "I didn't mean to make it about Grandpa." "That's what it was about," I said calmly. He nodded again. No apology, but not denial either. Growth doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like discomfort without deflection. After that night, he stopped commenting on the watch entirely. Stopped commenting on my job too. Not because he became a different person, but because the old pattern didn't work anymore. We're not suddenly close. We're not adversaries either. We exist in a clearer space, the kind where jokes aren't shields, where dreams aren't leverage, where ownership doesn't dissolve under pressure. Entitlement rarely announces itself loudly at first. It arrives as humor, as banter, as just kidding. It tests. It measures. And if you smile and hand it over once, it learns. The baby shower wasn't ruined. The Rolex never left my wrist. But something did leave that backyard. The assumption that my silence meant agreement. And that was worth far more than steel and glass. If someone jokes about taking something that matters to you, do you laugh, or do you make them say it again?